My name's Jim Bennett. I'm the Chief Executive of Bannockburn House Trust, and I'll tell you a wee bit more about that later. First of all, thanks to Sarah Cameron and Senscop for organising this. This is part of a whole focus on social enterprises and community tourism. There's a whole series of events, and I know that one or two you've plugged into the other ones, so I would definitely recommend that you plug into as many as possible, because very informative, and well, at the bottom end of it, it's a good opportunity to network as well. This series culminates at the end of the week with a meeting of, I think it's called the Scottish Tourism Alliance. And the Scottish Tourism Alliance are interested in key takeaways that they can have if there are, I hesitate to use the word demand, but if there are demands that the sector has, or ways of being that would be more helpful, then that would be useful for them to know at a strategic level, and also for Senscop to know to represent that at a strategic level. Contrary to the advertising, we have 1 hour. We finish at 4 p.m. And not 4:30. The vagaries of Zoom not allowing it to be advertised as a 1 hour meeting. So what we have today is a main input from Seymour Adams. I'll tell you about Seymour in a minute. And then a further input from me. And not just an opportunity to ask questions, but an opportunity, I think, to share ideas about what the issues are in terms of heritage and tourism as well. So don't feel that if a subject that's close to your heart on this issue hasn't come up in either presentation, don't feel that you can't say anything about it, you can't make a comment, and it's not necessarily just about asking questions. I don't want to hang about too long. Welcome everybody here. I'm delighted you're here. I'm delighted you're all following the protocol and keeping muted during the session. Obviously, when you want to ask a question or make a point, if you can work out where the wee hand wavy thing is, I'll try to bring you in. So Seymour has a fairly interesting career, actually. He was director of corporate governance in a couple of different NHS organisations, and then was head of human rights at the UK Ministry of Justice, and that was before he became a non-executive director of the UK government's Scotland office. And chair of its audit committee. He has a wide variety of involvement in community heritage, living in Argyll. He's the chair of Historic Kilbride, the Lorne Archaeological and Historical Society, and joint secretary, Oban Music Society, and a member of the Scottish Community Heritage Alliance Working Group. So he's got a wide range of interests, but actually a really interesting professional background as well. Seymour currently is wearing about 3 hats when he's going to do this presentation to us. He's going to talk for maximum 15 minutes about 3 of those hats, but Sarah's just asked him to chuck another one on as well while he's here, so I think he'll briefly mention that too. Without further ado, Seymour, do you want to, do you have a PowerPoint or anything, Seymour, or you're muted. If you could unmute.
No, I don't have a PowerPoint presentation, because I've got rather fed up with them myself. So you've just got me, and I will just talk, and I hope I can continue to engage your interest. I'm just going to talk actually about 3 of the hats I wear. I'm going to start off talking about an organisation called Charts, which is the Culture, Heritage and Arts Assembly for Argyll and the Isles. And I'm going to talk a little bit about Historic Kilbride, and then finally I'll say a bit about the Scottish Community Heritage Alliance. So first, Charts. For those of you who are not aware of what it is, essentially it was spun off out of Argyll and Bute Council about 7 years ago. Some cynics would say it was a way of them divesting all responsibility for culture, heritage and the arts. Some say that actually, in the same way that they've done with their sports centres, it was a way of protecting and preserving them by outsourcing them. But whatever, we're still in business. What we though, because recognising our council heritage, we are very plugged into the Argyll and Bute economic strategy, which means our objective in Charts is to harness the potential of heritage, arts and culture to attract tourists into Argyll and Bute and to sustain employment and to create opportunities, particularly for young and disengaged people. Obviously, we've been enormously hit by COVID. A huge amount of the things that we used to do in person, particularly sort of in relation to promoting the arts and particularly promoting music, have had to go online. And so there's a way of actually directly engaging tourists that isn't great. I will talk about one specific initiative we got, though, because I think that does illustrate what we do quite well, which is a thing called Wander Argyll. Wander Argyll started off as a project 3 years ago of creating an interactive map of Argyll and Bute based around a new Sustrans long-distance cycle route, which went all the way from Helensburgh to Oban. And what we did on that map, I mean, it came in a physical form as well, but it was largely online. And we highlighted every venue that was on there that we could identify, summarize. So you could, like on a Google map, you could click on it, it would tell you about the venue, tell you when it was open, how much it cost, if it cost anything to go there, or if it was an artist, what sort of thing they produced, and how much they welcomed visitors to their studio. And that was quite successful. Its drawback, of course, Argyll and Bute is an enormous physical area, including 23 inhabited islands. It didn't include any of the islands, and it didn't include any of the Kintyre Peninsula. So there was quite a bit of moaning from the people who weren't covered by it, which was all fair enough. What we're now trying to do with that is two things, really. Firstly, we're trying to use it as a lever to promote specific enterprises. So there's a thing called the Artists Barrow in Oban, which is a sort of mobile exhibition of local artists. We're promoting the Cowell Open Studios, which will be an all-year event rather than just the sort of the 1 year art week. We've got a ceramics and woolens and textiles initiative in Tannebruich. We've got a specific target area around music on the island of Lishmore. And there's an amazing project which combines arts and heritage in Dunoon called Let's Build a Beach Hut, which also brings in local schools. But I think what we're trying to do is to turn Wander Argyll into more of a brand. So it's geared towards tourists who can go online first and plan what they're actually going to do in Argyll and tailor it to their specific interests, rather than just turning up, wandering down from the train station to the local tourist office and picking up a random load of leaflets. So I suppose that's the way in which we try to harness tourism. I suppose our worries are slightly that a lot of this isn't awfully sustainable when you look at climate change, in that a huge amount of visitors to Argyll and Bute either come here by car, or they come here by plane, or they come here on cruise liners. And that's what we were trying to do with the long distance cycle route, was saying actually you can cycle around Argyll without using up so much of the Earth's resources. And one of the things we are definitely trying to do with Wander Argyll, as indeed kind of the title implies, is to promote a number of different long route walks. And some of those will be on the Isles. And one particular example is we've been for quite a number of years trying to get a St Columba Colmcille heritage walk, tracing all the places associated with the saint. And that's arisen out of initiative we did with Bosch na Gaelic, of having a celebration of artists working in or around the Gaelic language. Gaelic is very much part of our development, obviously, because Argyll and Bute has a long heritage of traditional music, traditional arts, traditional poetry, and is one of the centres of Gaelic speaking. So that's kind of Charts. I'll talk now a bit about Kilbride, which is, for those who don't know it, it was sited about 2.5 miles south of Oban, historically on Lyrag's Glen, which was the population centre until the sort of early 19th century when Oban started to exist because of the paddle steamer and then subsequently the railways. And it is the site of what was at one point a very substantial medieval church, but there are no remains of it, apart from a few little sort of echoes. We find odd stones and window surrounds and bits of the door porch when we do archaeology. But what there is now is the remains of an 18th century Presbyterian prayer house. It was a complete overgrown wreck 15 years ago when we started restoring it. We brought it back quite successfully. We've still got one wall to do. We've spent about 100,000 on it over the past 5 years. We've got another 50,000 to go. It's also got an ancient churchyard, and part of the ancient churchyard is the memorial burial aisle to Clan MacDougall, in which all of the clan chiefs of that clan have been buried since 1737. So we get 4 different sorts of tourists, really, in Kilbride. We get the general tourist, if I can call it that, mainly Scottish, mainly from Glasgow, but some people from wider afield who turn up simply because they're passing, there is a local pub, or because the tourist office is pointing them in our direction, or they're particularly enterprising. Then we've got sort of genealogical tourists. We do have, there's about 120 clans, family names registered in our graveyard. The graves have all been catalogued by an academic. We've got a very nice pewter or the steel map, which the council paid for, and we've got box files in which all the graves are individually catalogued, and you can find, if you've got a particular grave you're looking for, you can find out everything we've been able to find out about that. And then particularly, obviously, we have members of Clan MacDougall, and it's quite a widely dispersed clan with a very big diaspora. There's an enormously active Clan MacDougall Society of North America. They have, periodically every clan gets together. 3 years ago, just before the pandemic, we had the Clan MacDougall International Gathering, and we had a large number of visitors from the clan, and they are active supporters of ours, and they give us quite a lot of money, as they do, obviously, to Dunolly, which is the Clan MacDougall, the seat of the clan, which is just on the north of Oban, and with whom we work in partnership. And then we also now have, and we'll see how this goes, we've been increasingly developing a partnership with a cruise company called Overseas Adventure Travel. They're quite an enterprising cruise company, and they do small tours for, I think they would like to say, sort of intelligent Americans, and they give them lectures on areas of different sort of Scottish contemporary life. They get in an MSP, MSPs from 2 different parties arguing that, for and against independence, that sort of thing. They are coming to us. Would you believe they have 137 tours booked with us this summer, coming around in groups of 20. They all have to be taken around by volunteers. We are making a reasonable amount of money out of this. But interestingly, the title of their programme is Scotland Revealed: Legends, Lochs and Highland Landscapes. So although we've got an awful lot of hard and very interesting history at Kilbride, that's not really what the tours are about. What the tours are about are ghosts and curses and murders and any legends and stuff that is of dubious historical veracity. That's what that's what they want, but that's what they pay for. So what's the sort of overall impact of this? Well, I mean, one of our main worries, and I'm sure I'm not the only person to feel this, is particularly in a volunteer-led organization, although that has enormous benefits in terms of financial sustainability and not having a payroll to run and not worrying about what happens when you get a pandemic and your income completely dries up. A lot of our volunteers are in the third age. A lot of them have been shielding. They are increasing, and they haven't really regained their confidence. and they are getting older. Attracting in young people to get involved in heritage is something we've been trying to do through a project it's run by Charts, actually, called Heritage Horizons, which has been putting placements with heritage organizations of young people to do very specific projects. And what our placement person has been doing, and is nearly completed, is designing an audio tour that you can download on your mobile phone, and then you can go around on your own without necessarily being taken around by a volunteer. I mean, I've been in, you know, every time I go anywhere myself, I download and see what they're like, and they're amazingly varied. Some extremely good and some not so good. No names, no pack drill. But that's what we're in the business of doing. And I suppose at the moment and for the foreseeable future, an awful lot of our offering to tourists in heritage is about raising money, because we need this remaining 50 grand to stop the south wall falling down. Where we'll be once we've done that, in a world of increasing climate change and emphasis on sustainability, we'll have to see. Finally, as Jim said, I'll say a little bit about the Scottish Community Heritage Alliance, which I also chair, which was triggered 5 years ago by a series of roadshows run by the University of Aberdeen, in which we went around 12 venues across the whole of Scotland to inviting community heritage organisations to say what they thought they wanted and needed in terms of a network and in terms of advocacy. And we revealed quite an area of unmet need of organisations who felt they weren't really taken seriously or listened to by a lot of the big players. And they thought, you know, a grassroots organisation would serve their interests quite well. We were particularly hit by the pandemic, I'm afraid, and I expect some of you will have wondered what on earth's going on if you have tried to contact the organisation. We are building a new website, and we have marshalled our communications list of supporters and friends and people who are interested, and you will be hearing from us shortly with our revised offer. But you know, and we still think the need is there, and we think it's probably even greater now post-pandemic, but we don't want to start offering something on which we really can't deliver. So that's where we are with that. So I think I've spoken enough. Thank you very much for your time. I'm sure there are issues coming out of that. I can see a couple in the chat already, but I'll leave it to Jim to decide how he wants to play the next session.
I think what we'll do quickly before we go on to me is, if there are any immediate questions or observations, we can take them, and then you can hear me chanting on for a wee while if you want. So any, you know, sort of use the reactions, wavy hand thing if you've got any immediate questions that you want, you'd like, or any immediate observations. Oh, are we blighted by the romanticisation of Scotland, or is it an asset? Well, that's a biggie. Let's hold that one, because I will probably talk about the ruthless advantage that I take of the romanticisation of Scottish history and developing the income for my organisation. Let's take it as a hook. Absolutely. Right, what we'll do, let's see if there's one more. What we'll do is we'll just go on to me. Can you let me share my screen? Who is it? It's not Sarah, is it?
I've done that.
You've done it, right? Good. Unlike Seymour, I kind of rely on pictures. I like people to look at pictures rather than to look at me. From the beginning. Here we go. Can everybody see that? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I'll take that as a yes. what we have is Bannockburn House. This is a visualisation that our conservation architect John Sanders did of how it's going to look when we've finished our master plan. What we had about 4 years ago, it was a community buyout. It's a 30-acre estate, primarily Jacobean, privately owned since 1650. Actually, it's privately owned. There was a house, a grand house on the estate since the 14th century when Robert Bruce gave a charter. The whole estate, and this is about the ruthless romanticisation of Scottish history, because we're at the crossroads of Scottish history. Bonnie Prince Charlie had his HQ here. Part of the Battle of Bannockburn was fought on our land. There's a Roman road runs through our land. Also, the Battle of Sauchieburn, where I think it was King James IV killed King James III, his dad, was on our land as well. It was bought by the community about 4 years ago. The estate was completely overgrown. Very vulnerable mansion house, semi-derelict outbuildings, but a pretty wonderful place. It's community controlled, membership of about 550 local people, 200 volunteers, different volunteers group. I mean, I say 200 volunteers, but it's actually probably 10 different groups of 20 volunteers, and not all of them will know each other or be interested in the different work that they do. There's some just do construction, some do garden, some do retail, some do events. We have regular all volunteer meetings and in-depth community volunteer consultation processes. These pictures here were done by this guy up here, Mark Leslie, as part of highlighting the volunteers. The people pictured are volunteers for our organisation. So the activities that we do, the leadership, creation, custodianship, provision of most services, gardens, constructions, all volunteers. There's a difference between the facilitation, participation and control methodology that we use. I try to encourage the staff to act as levers to develop the capacity of volunteers to lead on things, but there are tensions there. We've got a strong emphasis on culture and creativity. If you were to look at the issues, I think there are issues about the role of volunteers and the interests of volunteers versus the interests of the community versus the interest of our estate as a national icon, at A-listing and, significant plasterwork. So there are tensions in how you actually observe and feel what the organisation is about. We have limits to capacity, like all voluntary organisations. I think that's a common structure. We've got few part-time staff, including me, and we've also got a quite serious tension between trading and grants. The COVID-19 gave us a huge issue about maintaining the gains that we've made, keeping volunteers engaged, delivering for funders, but also our trading income got totally wiped. We did have a massive pivot to digital. 141,000 people viewed all our post live stuff. There was about 5,000 live viewers throughout 1 year, with about 200 online events, seminars, quizzes, anything you can think of. I'll brush over the other stuff. This is me, by the way, in case anybody doesn't recognise me, which is the main reason why I wanted to use slides so that I can show you this magnificent photo of me. But if you look at the core issues, I think, what exactly are we? Are we a neighbourhood community organisation? Are we a national tourist destination? Or are we a heritage conservation charity? Now, the reality is that I have failed to make that key strategic deliberation and set astride those three different horses, depending which funding pot I'm applying to. Next question, are we market-driven or social impact-driven? And that was a key issue during COVID, where our social impacts were tremendous. I mean, we really, really did well with that. But the development of an independent income stream fell through the floor. So we've got a lot of focus now on doing that independent income stream again. As a historic estate, we've got all the issues of planning consents, listed building consents, archaeological investigations, specialist costs. Whatever it is, it takes longer and it costs more. So there are particular issues for charitable organisations, for heritage organisations who are involved in tourism. We have a 15-year master plan, the longest that we've ever had any money up until this point is 2 years. So we've got long-term plan, short-term money. Inevitably, sometimes we don't land the big fish. And I know I share at least one frustration with one member of the audience about relationships with local authorities who talk about us as a partner but don't evidence any of that. Trading, very serious issue. Burnout, very serious issue. So that was a quick whistle-stop tour through Bannockburn House. I probably did that a lot quicker than I've ever done it before, but I'm conscious that I wanted to leave time for questions, contributions. So, Rona, did you want to talk about, if you could unmute yourself and talk about the comments that you've made and the questions about maximising Scotland's stories and legends?
Hi, so we're one of 2 community-led tourism projects, pilots, that were set up, and the other one was Brechin. So we're Girvan, and we heard about Brechin's developments and so on, and I was quite fascinated by the idea of creating new standing stones with Pictish symbols on. And I kind of thought, well, why not? Let's have some new things in the 21st century. Also, maximising stories and legends, they're all there, and I suppose what we need to do is to bring them to life. We don't actually need any physical evidence of it, and people love stories, and this being the year of stories is yet another reason why stories are important.
I think all good points. Just as a matter of interest, has anybody accessed any of the Visit Scotland's Year of Stories pots of money? No, or museums and galleries in Scotland? Well, that's really interesting. We haven't either. But I mean, there's a good pot of money available. So I wonder why that's not happening. I wonder why people aren't accessing that, because as Rona said, I think the storytelling is a key aspect of it. Any questions for Seymour or I? Oh, Rachel, unsuccessful. Rachel, were you told why you were unsuccessful?
No, we weren't actually. I think it was possibly because there were too many applicants, but disappointingly, we were then told that we couldn't apply for the second lot of funding, which was a bit sad, really. We were disappointed.
What is your organisation?
I'm from Brechin Community-Led Tourism. I'm the
right.
support. Yes. And one of the projects that we wanted to do was to explore Brechin stories in stone, a similar project to the Pictish stone project that Rona mentioned earlier. We have a local stonemason who is going to carve stories or illustrations inspired by stories in Brechin's past, which can be true or not true, as the case may be, which have been selected by local school children and drawn by them by visiting some of our heritage sites. So that's one of our projects.
Yeah, I think that sounds really, really interesting. I love Brechin. The good thing about Brechin is that if you look beyond the modern storefronts down some of the streets, you can see, I don't know if it's 15th or 16th century buildings that are here. And stonework's absolutely incredible.
Yep.
Sarah, you wanted to say something about the fund, about your worries about the fund, the storytelling fund.
I just worry that I think what we've seen previously with the focus year funding is that it's gone to the big guys, and it hasn't really opened up opportunities for communities because the events aren't big enough. They're not seen to be on the national stage. I was led to understand that this fund would be quite different. So that's maybe something that I will go away and investigate and ask questions about.
Well,
see who's
I think the Museums and Galleries Scotland one, I think that's just closed, hasn't it? The problem that I had with MGS funding for, although this is not for museums, is that they wanted to pre-register and pre-screen your organisation. And with us, we're not an accredited museum. And even although they were open to non-accredited ones, they were pretty sticky about it. But there's this particular fund, there was no emphasis on that. But well, if you started whining about access to funds, I'd go on all day though. And then I'd complain that when I did get money from the funder, they were too bureaucratic as well. Don't get me started. Any other questions?
Seymour's got his hand up.
Oh, Seymour, fire away. Sorry, I didn't see.
That's right. I mean, when we were doing the road shows, the Scottish Community Heritage Alliance, the statistic which was quoted to us, and I don't know if it's absolutely right, but on the last Heritage Lottery funding round, 28% of the applications they received from community heritage groups, and they ended up with 2.8% of the funding.
Yeah.
Which I thought was quite sort of, reinforces Sarah's point. Just while I've got the floor, I just wanted to echo very much what you said, Jim, about this question of, Scottish community heritage does kind of raise the question, is it community or is it heritage? And that's a question that we have found as difficult as I think you have actually to answer. And do we really look towards MGS and HES, or do we actually look towards Senscott and the community organisations? I suspect, as we move into a more sustainable world, I think I would see our focus being more and more on the community, more and more on exploiting Kilbride as a community resource, as a place where people can come and have local events and children's events and get schools interested, rather than trying to market ourselves all the time to rich Americans.
Yeah, interesting. Just as a matter of interest, if you could let us know how many people have been involved with Historic Environment Scotland or Heritage Fund. How many people have had cash out of them both? A minority, which again is surprising for community heritage organisations. I know that HES have made lots of very, very positive noises towards us, but their funding application process is long drawn out, and we are in the middle of cleansing a funding application with them, which was made 18 months ago, and the first time that we will see money on the table for it will be in about another 9 to 12 months time. So it's not for the faint-hearted, and it's about this mismatch between long-term plans and short-term money that we have as well. That relying on small community-based organisations to have the same capacity as your, kind of Stirling Castles or whatever. Now, Catherine is saying that we've had Event Scotland Clan Fund support for a few years. That's interesting. I haven't heard of that one.
It was funding that was going for about 5 years. I'm from Hoyk in the Scottish borders, and
that's where I was brought up.
In Hoyk, right? Okay.
So your clans are all Turnbulls and Scots, are they?
Well, we had to insist that we weren't clans down here anyway. We were families, so rather border leaver families. But we've been going for 20 years, and or 20 years next year. So we had actually we had £5,000 each year for about 4 years from the Event Scotland Clan Fund, which helped us substantially and took us up to the point of the onset of COVID, which happened just before our festival in 2020. So we've lost all the head of steam that we had to some extent. We're about to have our festival starting on Friday, but as I said, the head of steam that we're kind of built up, COVID has obviously had a significant impact on.
Yeah, I mean, my mum and sister still stay in Hoyt, but I've lost any kind of real connection that I had with, I asked him about some of the stuff that's been done in terms of using heritage as a tourist tool. Hawick is a real exemplar of how that should be done. The stuff that, whether it's the kind of Reivers Festival stuff or the stuff at Drumlandrick Tower. Is it Drumlandrick Tower, the one in the High Street?
The Textile Tower House, yeah. As it is now.
Yeah.
Interestingly, our provost, because we work with a lot of reenactment groups, there's a huge festival in Graal in Belgium, and our provost had gone across with some other members to it 2 years ago, and he'd been invited to a meeting set up by a local authority or Historic Scotland, Historic Society in Europe, and he said they were at this meeting and they were presenting huge excitement about one-off relics that they had for various things, and he was sitting thinking, we've got wall-to-wall of these things in the borders, the Peel Towers, the castle ruins, and we actually make nothing of it. And it was something he was really going to try and push with Scottish Borders Council, but I think we feel we've got a bit of an uphill struggle there, because there is an argument that tourism and heritage is part of the regeneration of the borders, but it's not really being backed up by actual support to make it happen, I think. And it is voluntary organisations who are largely doing what work there is at the moment.
So would you characterise the push on heritage-based tourism in Hawick as really it's all coming directly from the community? Then it's not top-down?
I think that would be true to say. I'm actually wearing various hats again at this meeting, because I'm part of something called Hornswall Greenway Development Group, which is looking at creating a historic cycle walkway through the town, right, both ends of the town. We've got flood prevention work going on at the moment, and it's actually trying to link in with that. And Sustrans is coming into that as well. So I was really interested in what you were saying about the route up the west coast. There's also another group called Town of 1,000 Trails, who've actually set up a web platform to try and actually promote all the things that you can do out of Hawick, rather than, Hawick is your base, but here are the 1,000 trails, walking, cycling, riding, whatever. But again, that's all being run by volunteers and funding. I'm sure everybody in this room totally agrees that funding is the biggest challenge that we all face. Yeah,
I think Hawick will face similar issues to we face in Stirling or Bannockburn, which are probably not what Seymour will face. That kind of Stirling Bannockburn is seen as a 1-2 day destination. It's not seen as a week-long destination. And I would imagine Hawick in particular, will be seen, if you're lucky, as a day out. But not even the borders as a whole for a week-long destination. So the issue that we have as local organisations, I think, partly is integrating into the kind of strategic stuff that's going on to push the destination journey that bit longer, and to do exactly what you've just outlined, Catherine, is that you've got a richer series of opportunities. I think Seymour, my perception of Argyll is different, because I've always gone to Argyll for at least a week. So it's the kind of place where I think it appears to lend itself more to that.
You've got the chicken and egg argument down here as well, that they'll say that there are not many places for visitors to stay. I think that's a bit underrepresented though, because I think there are more tourist beds than you might expect. But tourists can't come because there's nowhere for them to stay. There's no point in setting up beds if there's no tourists coming, and it's that finding out, which I'm sure everybody again is experienced with.
Just a question, has anybody got a good positive experience of being involved at a more strategic level rather than where they're solely with their own localised community group?
Hi. Hi,
Sorry.
so hi, my name is Helen. I'm not actually working with a community group. I was told about this event by a friend of mine who works at a community enterprise. I actually work for the Inner Force Futures Partnership for their Climate Force project, and I am the project officer in charge of business and visitor engagement. And our aim is to actually use heritage to bring more visitors or visitors for a longer time in the area of the inner force, so around Stirling, Alloa, Falkirk and all that. And so it's very interesting what you're saying about people seeing a place as a day destination. So it's how to encourage these people to not come on a day trip anymore. As soon as they spend one night, they will also have a dinner and spend a bed night in accommodation. So the whole interest is how to use heritage to bring these people there and to value the heritage in turn. It's a whole circle there. And so, for example, using heritage as an asset, like all the heritage of the ordinary that we have in the region, not just the big monuments that we all know about, but all the, in the Forth Valley, we have this industrial heritage that we can use. So that's what I'm working on. And
yeah, well, that sounds really, really interesting, actually, because I think it's a challenge for, again, this is not just for community heritage organisations, but all for all community organisations to be able to link in and take advantage of the stuff that's going on a strategic level. But there's all the obvious barriers to that, time, resources, commitment. Everybody else sitting around the table gets paid for it, doing a professional job, whereas by and large you're unpaid volunteers to do it. So there are a whole lot of barriers, but they don't simply exist in the heritage aspect.
So we actually funded by the National Lottery Heritage Fund. So we're starting the development phase now, with the aim of applying for the delivery phase at the end of the year. So and part of that is also working with communities as well on other heritage aspects which are not necessarily tourism related.
Yeah, and is that a partnership approach by a range of statutory organisations that's created this Inner Forth group then?
So the lead is the RSPB, but the partnership is made of the different councils in the area, as well as Sustrans Nature Scotland.
Sustrans are certainly getting about, aren't they?
We hear about them a lot, isn't it?
Yeah. Right. Is there anybody got any other questions or observations? Catherine, South of Scotland Enterprise. Do you want to speak a bit about that? That's quite interesting.
It's just recently been set up, and we've had various meetings with them. So I think it's a watch this space at the moment to see whether it has a huge impact on the area or not. It is very much about trying to, when it was originally set up, they talked about it being very similar to the Highlands and Islands Development Board and the success that it had had over the years. But as I said, it is in its infancy at the moment. I think it's really just been the first year, and again, COVID has had its impact there. So I think it is watch this space and see where we go from there.
I mean, South, this is where I feel a wee bit left out. I've done loads of work in Argyll and the Highlands and Islands in the past, and HIE was a big player now, a big funder of a lot of community things. Although everybody in the Highlands Islands complained non-stop about HIE, I thought as an outsider looking in, the work that they were doing was pretty magnificent compared to what was going on elsewhere. Now that the South of Scotland has got their own development agency with quite a hefty investment in a community development function as well, then it could be quite impressive, because the whole community land buyout stuff that they're supporting as well. So in the South of Scotland Development Agency, in the Highlands Islands Development Agency, Not sure if HIE covers Argyll though. It does, but not. But Argyll's its own council. You've got the Central Belt of Scotland with no tangible local economic development support out of the councils. And I don't know whether it's an assumption that Central Belt of Scotland will just get on with it or not. So I mean, it's interesting. Hang on, I'll have a look at what somebody's message are. So I think we were, if you would like to be part of the community tourism infrastructure that Ben Scott's set up, then please do email Sarah, who's organised this, and keep in touch. There's, I think, quite a number of organisations across Scotland and quite a good substrata involved in heritage as well. And obviously Seymour talked about the kind of community heritage organisation network, that's renewing their website. I know Catherine Gillis used to do a lot of work on it, but got fed up, I think, constantly knocking her head on a brick wall. Okay, we do have about 10 minutes left if anybody's interested in either advertising their own organisation, boasting about what they're doing, or asking questions or making contributions. I mean, Sarah's asked an interesting questions there. Do we as organisations feel connected to the tourism strategies that are going about? Well, I can't answer that directly for Bannockburn House. I think in Stirling, there are, there is a tourism strategy for the wider Stirling area, and there are key tourism heritage organisations who promote various things, from Stirling Castle to the Battle of Bannockburn site to the Wallace Monument. There are things as well. I think in reality that even the big players are disjointed from any real tourism strategy. I think that's the reality of it. I think the further difficulty that we've got as a community player is a limited number of resources. Now, my pal Matt McGrandles was saying earlier, but he seems to have dropped out. They run a huge Highland Games event as a social enterprise every year, the Stirling-based one, very successful, in tens of thousands of pounds to Stirling, and get no help at all from the council or from other organisations. Mark does it virtually all with private sector funding or paltry amounts of grant funding. And I think that is the story of all kind of community organisations, that the ability to be taken seriously by big players, but even realising actually that the big players often are just ploughing their own furrow, and although they're nominally part of strategies, the reality is the strategies don't get past bits of paper. My kind of experience of it. Any other comments on the strategic stuff before we move forward?
Helen's got a hand up.
Helen, sorry, I can't even see where Helen is. Oh yeah, there you are.
Yes, so you're saying feeling disconnected from the tourism strategy. Is there any local DMOs, destination marketing organization, that communities can join? I attended the latest event from Discover Clackmannanshire, and they were advertising the a community shares project on an Aloha Hub, Active Hub, and Heritage Travel, and so it's the DMO that was presenting it at their event. So is there any DMOs that community groups can join, maybe in your local area?
Yeah, and what destination marketing organisations, is that a term that's familiar, or sort of a geographic organisation that kind of gives an overall view of tourism in the area? No, it's not.
So as in the one for Scotland will be Visit Scotland, but then you might have some local ones. So for example, you have Discover Clackmannanshire, Visit Falkirk, and then in Argyll and Bute, I believe you have Wild. Is it Wild About Argyll or something like that, isn't it? So maybe by being in touch with these organizations, they can give you more visibility on your project.
If I could just come in, Jim, on this subject.
Fine.
I think there's a bit of confusion about DMOs as well, and how they operate. So I think there's confusion at all levels. No, even within Visit Scotland, it's hard to get a list. They've obviously, you know, the destination management organisations, when you ask Visit Scotland for a list, they'll give you regional level organisations. That's where they're engaging. And then obviously there are other organisations. So for example, if we look at the work that's been going on in Brechin, they work really closely with Angus Tourism Cooperative, but actually Angus Tourism Cooperative isn't seen as the DMO, even though it's behaving as such. It's a wider Tayside collaboration, and it's actually local authority led. So there's a little bit of confusion about how they all fit together. But I think what is key in that is that networking, I think, that you're highlighting, Helen, is to connect with people in the industry. I think that certainly when I'm working with social enterprises in the heritage sector and I'm working with tourism organisations, we have this tendency to stay where we're comfortable. We stay with our heritage friends because they understand what we're talking about, and the tourism guys stay in the tourism industry because everybody understands what they're talking about. Social enterprises, great talking to each other. We really need to be branching out and starting to have these conversations so that communities have a voice. And I think that's been my argument since we started this work, is developing that voice for communities so that communities are valued and respected and heard at a national level as well as a local level. But it has to happen at a local level first, so that it happens at a national level, if you see what I mean, because we've got this strange mix of organisations out there. So I think what's key is do connect with DMOs and tell them your story and help them understand how communities benefit beyond the traditional economic tourism focus. Because I think what's become clear from the conversation that you've been having today is that broad impact that you all have that goes far beyond, I guess, how a DMO might see your organisation. I suspect that they probably don't see the broader picture and see all the things that you do. So I think that my ask, not of the tourism strategy folk and a national level, but actually of you guys, is to please network locally and connect and speak up and have your voices heard, because I think that if we do that individually, when we come together, our voices will be much stronger and we can really start to make an impact and make sure that communities are heard at a national level. If that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense, Sarah. Thanks very much. We've got a couple of minutes left, and I think, you know, Sarah's written the first bullet point for herself, but probably fairly accurately reflects you know, where she thinks should be from this meeting. Is there anything that strikes anybody that should be taken over to Senscott's representations on Friday to the wider, you know, sort of tourism strategy stuff?
If I can just reinforce, I think, what Sarah's point almost. I mean, I've seen this at Kilbride, but even more strongly at Charts. It's almost in tourism. Your tourism organisations will be there to promote holiday camps and hotels and restaurants and groups that do tours and boats that go out and show people wildlife, and even artists. But they tend to see heritage as a sort of means to an end. It's, oh, right, oh, great, okay, there's a heritage site there, that'll attract people into the hotels. But they don't quite see that the heritage site is something that actually is meritorious of promotion in its own right sometimes. And I think Sarah's absolutely right that the way to cut through that is by playing the community card, if you like, and to have these sites valued by the community for their own sake as part of the place in which they live.
Very, very good point. Okay, we have 1 minute left. So unless there are any pressing issues that anybody wants to take forward, I'd like to start wrapping things up. So any final points? No. So I'd like to thank Linda from Community Enterprise Limited for making sure that we had a fairly efficient technical session. It doesn't look like anybody's fallen out. Certainly I've not frozen. And also I'd like to thank the two Senscot staff, Georgie and Sarah, for organising this. I think it's a testament to Senscot and their commitment to ordinary community organisations that despite the issues that they're facing, they're still going ahead and organising what is a fairly important week, highlighting community-based activity in this particular sector. So thank you both very much for that. And thank you all for joining. Seymour, thank you for your contribution as well.